All right, here we go. OverDrive off and running. TSN 1050 on the TSN app, your home smart speaker, and up on TSN 4. Bryan Hayes, the O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles McLennan.
What's going on?
What's going on?
I have to address the Montreal Canadiens nation maybe after the first break. I won't do it right away.
Oh, yeah?
Because our dear friend Mitch Gallo decided to send out a tweet yesterday before his show that read this. O-Dog says they need to send Lane Hutson down now. Agree or disagree? Call in 151. It's just like...
I pushed back on that, too. I was like, you know how other markets can be very sensitive about their top players or their up-and-coming top players, right? So
I had to go on that show today. I was on Mitch's show.
Why didn't
today.
you
For a
say
response?
anything?
I was
Really?
speaking on your behalf. They played the clip for me, and I was like, well, let me answer for, what we were talking about was there was a greater conversation about how big of a disaster the Habs are right now. Defensively, the losing. And the point you were making, I don't know why I'm telling you this, was in protection of the player, not in critique of the player.
Right.
There's a difference. It wasn't Lane Hutson is brutal and getting crushed.
I know. Do you know how many people have been writing me on Twitter? Like
you got radio.
I almost
buddy. You
signed
yourself.
off on Twitter. I almost signed off on Twitter today. I was just like, I'm too old for this, man. I have strangers calling me a buffoon. I don't know what I'm talking about. And it's just like anything else. Man, you play hockey, you're tough, you get a tough personality, whatever. I kept reading all these things, and I said to myself, like just a wimp of a weasel of a human being, I went, maybe I'm not a good analyst.
No, stop.
Then I went. Then 2 seconds later, I said, "Get out of here! I'm a good analyst."
Come on, you got to Stuart
back.
Smiley this. Repeat after me. People love you, and gosh darn it, you're one hell of a sports analyst. And listen,
I can
man,
break down F1, F2, and F3. And
that's right.
I am good.
That's right. And you guys had a lot of fun on the panel last night, and the Leafs never gave you an opportunity to see Methot wearing your O'Neill jersey.
Dude, do you know how pathetic it was 2 periods in a row? Like, we got it perfect last year. It was like, well, Doug, you wear the Ottawa one, and then the next period, Matthew, you wear the Leaf one. This year, 2 periods, I go to Sens Nation. I do look kind of not bad in the jersey, but it was tough. And the Leafs didn't. I called it a Tuesday night special.
Yeah,
like Noodles, you were in the building, but it was like, man, can you give me something here? Start to finish, right from the first shift, the turnover, the goal, and usually they can pick up something after that to grasp onto and say we're back into this. They got dominated.
They got pumped.
They got pumped
last night.
The way I looked at it in the building, and tell me if I'm wrong, I thought Ottawa played a great game, and I thought the Leafs played a bad game. Like you can have both, right? Like I thought Ottawa played. That's the best. And you guys know I watch every game, and I'm at every game for the most part. I think that's the best 60 minutes I've seen them put together, like full 60. I've seen pockets of that type of play. But there's been pockets where it's the drop-off and the other team jams into in 15 seconds. You're like, okay, what's going on?
Jamie, that might be the best 60 in 3 years I've seen from them.
But that's what I'm saying, guy. I'm not lying. Like, I'm not being over the top on that. I think that's the best game I've actually witnessed them play for a full 60 minutes in, I can't remember the last time. Now, I'm sure there is. But that being said, I don't think the Leafs had much. They didn't have legs. They didn't have pop. They didn't have much. So you can have both. I thought Stolarz made some really big saves early on.
If it wasn't for him, it would have been 5 or 6-0.
Yeah.
And it's not like end of the world. What the hell's going on here? It was an opportunity to get to 10-5. But the one thing Craig Berube has got to be saying to himself is, why do we keep getting back to that point? It's been 2, 3, 4 times. They get back to that point where he's got to say, this should be happening a little bit less. Like if they want to be an elite team, they don't have to be the Winnipeg Jets who continue to just destroy the league and pump everyone.
Crazy.
But he's got to be like, this is 4 to 5 times we were reverting back to this. So what are we doing?
Well,
here?
You're going to lose games, and honestly, if the Leafs played their B game last night, they lose because Ottawa was that good, like you said, Noodles.
Yeah,
like Ottawa was on their game from start to finish, and Ottawa beat the Leafs in every category possible last night.
Yes.
So I'm not sure a B effort from the Leafs wins that game, but you probably lose 3-2. And it's a battle, and maybe you can sniff out a point. Maybe you push it to overtime, you get a break or what have you. Their A game, is one that you're not going to get every single night. But that's what's frustrating, is it's not that you're going to lose. It's not that you can control what the other team's going to do every night. You can't, because the opponent's going to show up from every once in a while and just beat you, and just be better than you. And that's what happened with Ottawa last night. But it's that it goes from like an A game to a D game, as opposed to like an A game to a B game. Okay, you lost, but there's some things you can look at and like, where the Leafs were very flat last night. And what sticks out, early in the season, and it was evident prior to last night, and it was certainly evident during the game last night, is that their offense just is not as potent as it has been in the past. And that's another way where, in the past, even when they didn't have their A stuff, they could find a way to win a game or get back in a game.
They could score 4.
Because they'd rip home 4 out of nowhere. And going into the third last night, I at no point thought that was going to happen, where there have been countless times in the past, regardless of the opponent or what the opponent's doing, countless times in the past where down 3-0, you're watching that game because you think there's a very good chance they're going to come back, and they're going to at least make it interesting, and it'll be 3-2 and they'll pull a goalie. And that hasn't happened. They've been shut out twice this year. They hadn't been shut out in years.
Like 200
literally
years. Like it was 200 and some games. Like I feel like last time they got shut out was like the biggest outlier. I remember the stat. It was like they hadn't been shut out in like 260 games.
Right.
Which is, you're right.
Pushing up
years.
on history noodles. Like it was actually like chasing history for the longest stretch without being shut out. And listen, when Matthews is out, and now he's been out for 4 games, he'll be out again tonight. You miss when the big boy's not around. Over time, you're going to feel it, and you felt it last night. But the reality is they've played 17 games, and up the middle of the ice in particular, Max Domi has not scored a goal yet this year.
Yeah.
Literally hasn't scored. David Kampf and Pontus Holmberg are 3 of the other 5 guys who have played up the middle of the ice this year. It's Matthews, Tavares, Domi, Holmberg, Kampf. 3 of those 5 have literally not scored. Like Kampf, Holmberg, and Max Domi haven't scored, and that's concerning. Like that was an issue prior to last night. That is an issue going into the game tonight. Yes, Willie was floating around last night. Marner was terrible. Like no one showed up last night.
They just had an off.
They had an off night. But I think Willie shows up tonight. I think Marner shows up tonight.
Yeah.
And maybe the power play gets clicking again tonight. But a question that is hovering over this team is who else is going to contribute the offense? Because Nick Robertson has 1 point. Bobby McMahon's not doing it. Pacioretty's hurt now. Matthews is still out. Like, other guys have got to supply some 5-on-5 offense, and that's been a concern bringing the playoffs back into focus. Is you can't win 2-1 every single night. You can't do it. You got to score 3, 4, 5 goals every once in a while, and it can't be 4 or 5 guys that have to do it every single time. And that was evident again last night, specifically with the inability to make a push late, because it never felt like they were going to score.
And you talked about Austin Matthews. He goes out of the lineup. They do go win against Boston, win against Detroit, win against Montreal, and then they drop one to Ottawa. So you're
pretty good.
It's whatever way you're going to look at it. But to your point, Max has got to produce offensively. He's too good a player to have no goals and not be producing offensively. He's playing with some good players right now. He's getting the opportunity. Doesn't get much on a secondary, but he's a good enough player. He's got to produce.
Yeah, he's playing with guys. Like Kampf is a different story. Holmberg maybe a different story. Max is playing with Mitch Marner and Matthew Nyes.
No kidding. And guys like Bobby McMahon, who I've kind of pumped his tires before and thought he was a guy that can play a top-end role, he's got to get his head out of his ass and play better.
Yes.
The other 2 guys you mentioned, Holmberg and Kampf, I wouldn't be shocked if Kampf went 82 games without a goal. Dude,
if that happens, that's a problem.
Well, what are you expecting from him?
Not much, but it can't be 0.
I've never really understood that player since the time that he came aboard here. It was like, he kills penalties, man. He's not going to score you a goal. He can kill penalties. He's not a bad penalty killer. There's no physicality. There's no bite. That's what he does. He kills penalties.
What did he get? I mean, I'm going to look really on the fly, but what did he get last year for points?
No more than 5. There's no way in hell.
I got him right here. Last year he had 8 goals.
Yeah, I was going to say 8 to 10.
The year before 7. The year before in Toronto 11.
11. Yeah.
So
he's let's just say
if you're going to play
10,
82 games in the National Hockey League, you have to score 5 times. And that's not what's going to make or break anything necessarily.
Dude, listen to that sentence you just said. That is the dumbest thing you've ever said in your life. You got to give me 5?
It's accurate.
Now, what the hell's a sense of? I could put my gear on and get 5 right now.
I think you probably can. But
no, I know I could.
Well, if you can, like Ryan Reeves isn't giving you 5, right?
I meant to ask you guys.
Very ineffective. The whole fourth line. It's like.
They're physical. They are
dude,
physical.
I get it. And the coach is putting trust in them because he wants to use his bench. But if at the end of the day, you're just literally killing time, like it's one thing if you're running guys over in your momentum gainers, like you say, wow, the building's rocking now. They're literally just going out there from one end to the other, and it's back and it's forth. And if you want to do that, if you just want to kill ice time and kill time, then go ahead and keep putting them out there. But they're doing jack squat. That's what they're doing.
That is accurate. Again,
I know it's accurate.
But all right, let's just relax. We don't need a Lane Hutson conversation.
You're just really worked up.
Here's what I'm saying. The fourth line, though, is being physical, which I think is a credit to them, and I think valuable.
And I like it.
And
I like it.
the fourth line on every team in the league is only going to give you so much. We talk about how watered down this league is all the time. The fourth line on every team is going to – you are not looking at them for offense. But the further you go up the pecking order, you better find more of it. And an issue is on the third line, you've got Holmberg and Robertson and McMahon, and they are literally doing nothing.
Yes.
That's literally nothing. You know, because the other guys I can steal a shift, I can get physical, I can add maybe some intimidation. You know, Ryan Reeves is going to do whatever he's going to do. You know, Camp is going to kill some penalties and win some draws. That's where you go further up and up the lineup in the depth chart. You better start seeing a pyramid. You better see more offense, and it's just not there right now for a lot of these guys.
We talk about it, and right at the other end of the spectrum, you watch this Winnipeg team, it just seems like everybody, that whole roster scores.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. That's Shesterkin at the Garden, and they're like, we'll just dominate.
Yeah. Nemestikov puts one in. You know, it's just like, it's like their whole depth. I just had to look, and it's right. But Ryan Reeves played 9-12 last night. Did it not seem like he was on every second shift? Like, I don't know why. I just felt like every time I turned around, I'm like, there's Ryan Reeves again.
Yeah.
But maybe it just they got more shifts near the end or something like that. Kind of.
Well, I just pulled the goalie with like 6 minutes to go, which I think is a sound decision. I mean, you're down 3. Who cares if you're down 4? It was just I didn't think they had it, and I want to give a little perspective here because we had this conversation a week ago. And we said it's interdivision games. If you can get 3 out of 4, you're feeling pretty good about yourself. Absolutely.
So
the sky is falling.
No,
because
not
they
at
lost
all.
a game.
It's just I get where you guys are coming from. I get like sometimes there's just a dud, and you're like, God, you had so much going, so much momentum. You know, interdivision, like interprovincial. You know, Ottawa always gets up for those games and stuff. It didn't. From the Toronto angle, it didn't really land last night, unfortunately.
Right.
But you got an opportunity tonight to go back. Now, Washington's a team sitting there, and they're a pretty damn good team. Like they're probably would they be the biggest surprise outside of Winnipeg this year?
I'd say Minnesota would be.
Yeah, I guess
maybe at the top of that list. But I mean, Winnipeg is so extreme. You know, 15-1.
For fun, too.
It's staggering. Like, they've beaten the Rangers, the Stars, and the Avalanche. Those are their last 3 wins. Like, they're not playing San Jose, Anaheim, Columbus.
And sound wins, too. Not like squeaked out a 2-1 and Hellebuck's 50 saves. And,
Breezing.
You know, like
it's staggering what they're doing. And then Washington would be there, too. And, you know, like Dylan Strome is probably the most surprising, productive player this season.
There was a tweet yesterday. The guy's on pace for 125 points or something.
He is rejuvenated Ovi. Ovi's playing really well, and he's off to a great start. He's got 10 goals, but Strome has been phenomenal down there. Yeah. And, that was a big part of the conversation the last couple of years with Backstrom no longer available. who's going to fill that role to play with Ovi? Who are you going to connect him to? And Dylan Strome has stepped up significantly. And, Washington, they made the Chikrin deal. They signed Matt Roy. Like, that has kind of solidified their top four, and their goaltending's been good.
And they got Lars Eller back.
And Lars Eller they got yesterday for a third and a fifth from Pitt.
I think Kyle's had there's got to be some sort of shoe has got to drop, and I know you guys talked about it yesterday, but I think some form of shoe has to drop there in Pitt where Kyle's going to start to.
It's getting ugly,
move
man.
Some deck chairs around.
You see the former Swedish coach and GM is saying that Karlsson shouldn't be on the Swedish team, and he can't defend, and in a short tournament he shouldn't be there. No. It's getting ugly, man.
Yeah. Some guy's giving it to Karlsson that he's not going to make the Swedish team.
Well, he's on it.
That
they
he shouldn't be on. He was a choice. He's saying he should be on it.
Yeah, but this guy's saying, and if you watch him play, he shouldn't be a part of the team.
Yeah, but Noodles, we talked about it yesterday. What the hell are you going to get for those guys? Especially knowing that somebody's in wanting to move mode. You're not in a position of power. You have no strength, and it's just like you're going to have to move so-called legacy player. Like what would somebody give you for Geno Malkin right now, or Kris Letang? What are we talking about?
I mean, personally, I think teams would want that just based on you're getting them out of a different environment.
Okay, that's fine, Jamie. But what are you going to give Pittsburgh?
I don't know. I don't know because, who has the salary? First of all, if those guys control their own destiny, so they've got to want to move and want to go to that particular place.
There's no way in hell that those guys could want to all stay in Pitt right now and want to be a part of that gong show.
Okay, so let's just say, just for argument's sake, they do want to move. Who has the cap structure to go? Yeah, I'll put up my hand for what does Geno make? Are they all at 6
making
or 7?
$6.1 million.
Okay, so 6. Who's got an? Unless Evander Kane stayed, though, the Edmonton Oilers could take that probably if Evander Kane stays on LTIR. There's teams
you'd have
that
to send money back and then sweeten the deal,
and he would have to want to go there. I think those guys individually, if they moved, would probably be reinvigorated. But again, how do you fit them in, and what are you giving Pittsburgh for them? It's pennies on the dollar just based on trying to fit them into your structure.
And Malkin's got this year and next. So that's another thing that complicates things. But he has been healthy and put up good numbers.
Yeah, I don't think he's the problem there.
No,
I really
it's not.
Don't.
I don't think it's any individual player. It's the collection. And that's the conundrum you get into is if you look at players on their own, you're like, this guy could still work for you or that guy could still be helpful. And yet the collective just isn't there. Yet Malkin, the idea of these guys being available, someone like Malkin being available at the trade deadline would be, I think, incredible content and great for the league. It's not the same as Sid getting out of there, but he's been there for 20 years. He's an all-time great Hall of Famer, and he's still playing, and he's been a winner. He's an interesting guy. Again, you talk about Toronto and their issues up the middle of the ice. I can't imagine they'd be able to work out a deal. Dubas isn't trading someone up here. I think I don't even know what kind of diplomacy exists between those two teams and those two partners. If it's Dubas in Pitt and Shanahan in Toronto, I'm not sure it could work. But Geno's an interesting thought. He's lost a step, but he is a winner, and he's a big game player, and he's got some snarl.
Yeah.
The idea of Malkin being available, and you try to sweeten the pot, get them to eat some money, and bring him in.
Well, the same.
That's an interesting thought.
The same thing for me with Letang.
Do this, man.
Although
you talk about
Geno up the middle,
you're radioing yourself.
Geno
right
with
now.
Willie on a second line, move Tavares to the left side. Now you're cooking in the playoffs.
Okay, so let me ask you this.
You're cooking.
Let me ask you this, Brian. Where are you getting $6 million to spend to get?
Obviously, things
Geno
are going to have
Malkin.
to move around a little bit.
Yeah. And
I mean, Kyle likes Calle Yarncroke. Right?
Yeah,
loves Calle.
Dying to get him back in the
loves
lineup.
Calle. Loves Calle.
You're Joe from the bridging, saying give him Connor Timmins and a 7th rounder, and get them to eat half or 3/4 of Geno's salary.
Yeah,
that's good. Yeah, no problem.
He's probably going to be a complicated deal.
It wouldn't happen that way.
Maybe he goes to a third party. They eat 50%. All of a sudden, you get him here for $2 million. That's the kind of stuff that does happen in the league now.
But you got to pay currency for that. That's the biggest thing. And they're going, hey, you know what? What's this Fraser Minton kid look like? Hey, There'll be players that you're going, well, I really don't want to part with that. And you're like, yeah, well, that's the cost of doing business to get this guy out of there. And even if the player wants to go to that situation too, like Geno Malkin, yes, maybe anything to him might be better, but it might not be. He might say, I don't want to go to.
Seems like a loyal guy, right?
Market
Just
X,
like Sid. Loves Pitt, only knows Pitt, doesn't want to leave Pitt.
Yeah.
But Pittsburgh's playing tonight. They're in action tonight. Bruce Boudreau will join us to tee up Leafs Caps tonight. His take on Ovechkin and how well he's been playing. How many goals could we see out of Ovi this year? Struddy will join us today. Jerry's percentages coming up today. Kenzie Lalonde, phenomenal last night. You and Kenzie had a great call, Noodles.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was great to work with
you would expect. I mean, that was the expectation. And it would have been a fun game to call from that perspective. If you're a Sens fan, that would have been a fun one last night. So Kenzie will join us later this afternoon as well. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. Overdrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Back-to-back for the Leafs tonight. To my knowledge, everyone's going to be playing, including Yanni Hakanpää. But there will be no injury management for any of the Leafs. But that's not the case for Joel Embiid and Paul George.
Dude, that's I read that tweet today. That's so embarrassing.
It's so embarrassing that they played in Philly last night, and they're playing in Philly tonight. They're 2-8. Their season is going down the drain, and Embiid's like, just can't do it, man. Injury management, back-to-back, can't play. Paul George. It's so embarrassing.
In their own buildings,
in their own building, back-to-back games. Cleveland's 12-0. The Cavs are in town. It's almost like they're just punting. They're like, screw it. Just let everyone else go out there and get pumped. It's such a bad look. Anyway, more on that later this afternoon, including the Raptors losing again last night. The Bucks shot 56 threes last night. It was absurd to watch. Leafs Caps tonight down in Washington. I think this is a good one for the Leafs to get back on the horse, right? You didn't play well last night. Burn the tape, get on the bird, fly down to Washington. You better be ready to play because the Caps are legit. Here's Bruce Boudreau, our TSN hockey analyst. Bruce, you watch this Caps team pretty much every night. You watch the Leafs pretty much every night. How good have the Capitals been this year, and what's in store for the Leafs tonight?
Well, first of all, you're right on both those questions. I have no life. I watch those guys all the time. But the Caps are good. I mean, it's just flat out where they've looked at in the past, what did we do to succeed? And they got bigger, they got faster, and they got younger. And consequently, they can score. They got, and they've had good goaltending. So, Logan Thompson is 7-0 going into tonight's game. So the Leafs have got it's going to be a real test for them today. But usually with Toronto, if they play one bad one, they play a good one the next night. So I'm looking forward to a really good game.
Yeah, it should be a good one. And I'm curious if you see it the way I see it, Bruce, that I think this is a good thing for the Leafs after how poorly they played last night to get on a plane, get down there and play again tonight. Did you like that when you were a coach, getting right back onto the horse the next night?
Absolutely. That's exactly what you want to do, is you don't want it to stay in there. Okay, we got 4 days off. Let's practice, and then you keep listening to the coach harp on how bad we were and we got to get going. If you play a one stinker and then the next night you're right back on the horse and you get a chance to prove everything wrong, and in 24 hours you've forgotten about the previous game that you played at home.
Brucey, we were talking about the depth and how Chief likes to use 4 lines and get everybody involved, feeling good about themselves, which I think is fantastic. But how does the approach change when the third and the fourth line are accomplishing basically nothing offensively? Like, they do go out there, they got jerseys on, they can be physical, but other than that, they're not producing. It's not an opinion, it's factual. So how do you manage that?
It's tough. Just before we came on, I was looking at all the Leaf numbers, and when you're looking at their forwards, Holberg's got nothing, no goals. Reeves got no goals. Robertson's got 1 goal. Camp has no goals. Domi hasn't had a point in 11 games. You cannot continually rely on the same players, because eventually they're going to, it's going to be not easy to check them, but I mean, it's going to be, let's focus on stopping Tavares and Matthews and Nylander and Marner, and you're going to win the game all the time. You need the balance. Look at any NHL team that wins the Stanley Cup. It's a four-line thing, and the fourth line has got X amount of goals, the third line has X amount of goals, and so forth. And also, I mean, even though the Leafs power play picked up 3 out of the last 4 games, it has not been good this year. So if the power play is not going and you're not getting anything from the bottom 6, man, I think you're struggling to win a lot of games. And even though they're now playing a very good defensive game, it's tough when you have to win every game 2-1 or 3-2. Sometimes you'd like to be able to have a little bit of breathing room. Leafs aren't getting it with the guys on the fourth and third lines right now.
Bruce, how do you from a coach's standpoint, then, how do you kind of find that magic balance of, your top guys, you're not worried about them if they're playing up to their capabilities, but finding either it's extra minutes or less minutes for that third or fourth line, depending on what they're producing. Like, if you want to get them going, what's the secret sauce to try and get them going? Is it placing them in situations, maybe some offensive zone draws, or, finding a second power play for them to get some confidence going?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, you have to find a way. So, I mean, you're exactly right. I mean, putting them in positions to succeed. I mean, if you just remember 2 years ago, not taken last year, in Edmonton, McDavid and Draisaitl, they played all night long. They were playing 25 minutes a night, and every time that Edmonton got behind a goal, they would put them back on the same line and double shift them and play them all night, where the third and fourth lines would go, okay, we're losing, I guess we're no good anymore, we can't play. And consequently, Edmonton didn't go anywhere. Once they started playing the third and fourth line a little bit more, they got better. I think it's the same in Toronto. Like, I mean, but they have to start producing a little bit at least. I mean, you've got to put them in positions to succeed, but you've got to keep playing them. I mean, because there's only they have to play the proper minutes to be able to say, hey, I'm a contributor, rather than whine and go home and say, well, they don't play me, they don't have faith in me, how can I succeed? I mean, somehow they got to find that balance, and I don't know what the balance is, because I'm not there, but I mean, they can't rely on the top 6 to be doing all the scoring. Nicholas Robertson, these guys have got to score goals. Max Domi, we talk about, he's playing well, he's getting chances, but I mean, he's got to start putting some in or creating opportunities. Without Pacioretty there, it's tough, because you're not going to get Ryan Reeves to score 10 to 15 goals this year, but they got to find a way to get some goals, or they're going to be in trouble almost every game if the big guys don't score.
With Bruce Boudreau ahead of Leafs Capitals tonight, Dylan Strome has played really well since he arrived in Washington. The last couple of years, he's put up really good numbers, but this year he's off to a rocket of a start. He's got 22 points in 14 games. He's playing with Ovi. How much of what you've seen out of Ovechkin early in this year, particularly him scoring at the rate he's scoring, would you place at the hands of Dylan Strome, and how well Strome is playing and how well he's connected with Ovi?
Well, they certainly have a connection this year. I mean, I think Dylan is assisted on every one of Ovi's goals right now. Last year, they went through a myriad of centers. I mean, Dylan was there, but he wasn't always Alex's center. I mean, and Alex missed Nick Backstrom. There's no doubt about it. But, I mean, now he's found another centerman that he's got great chemistry with. They keep them together. I think it's so important. He's not going to assist on every one of his goals, but he's going to be there. And he finally got that number one center again. And let's not forget, Dylan Strome was a third overall pick, only behind McDavid and Eichel. I mean, he's a pretty good player. But sometimes it takes a little bit longer for these guys to find their groove. He's found his groove. The Capitals themselves are a high-scoring team now. I mean, if you recall last year, if they won, it was 2-1. If they lost, it was 5-1, which was why they had a minus 38 goal differential, I think, at the end of the year. But now they've scored 6 goals in, I think, half a dozen of their games. 6 goals or above in half a dozen or more of their games. So they can score, and they don't chase the game as much. And Dylan Strome and Alex, when you're chasing the game as an opponent, you're giving them opportunities to score because you're taking chances, and these guys are taking advantage of it. But I think Dylan Strome is a great number one center for them, and they're with Lars Eller going to be a good number three. PLD is the number two. The Caps again have really good balance at center this year. So I think they're going to be a tough team to beat.
Absolutely. Leafs Caps tonight. Enjoy it, Bruce. We'll do it again soon. Thank you for this.
All righty, no problem. Take care, guys.
Bruce Boudreau. And Lars Eller was obviously there when the Caps won their cup, but PLD. We've said what we've said about Pierre-Luc Dubois, but he's fit in pretty well there. And Dylan Strome is a guy that he's 27. He's in his prime.
Yeah.
And they picked him up, when he kind of popped in Chicago, and then, he's been in Washington, and that's big. Like, Backstrom's not there anymore. Kuznetsov not there anymore. Those were big holes to fill, and they seemingly have found guys that they believe can do that. Caps off to a really good start. And Ovechkin, riding that wave. He's got 10 goals.
If you look at it, too, Bruce talked about it, like Strome has found his stride, Dubois in and out, but, Dubois is only 26 years old. The one thing that's consistent with the Washington Capitals is they're a big team. Like, you look at their top six. Ovechkin's a big man. Like, he plays
massive.
at 240 or whatever it is. Strome's a big kid. Dubois is a big kid. That Protish is a big kid. Mm-hmm. Tom Wilson, who's had a great start. Like, nobody's talking about that Michael kid who's 23 years old.
Great start.
That kid's got some skills.
He can motor, man.
So, that's their top six. And they're all, 6'3", and heavy, beef guys. Mangiapane they added. He's a speedster. There's a guy on their fourth line, that Duhaime. He played in Minnesota. He's a tough customer. Like, he's kind of like a, just a up and down straight line winger. Like, but he's a big guy who can fight. Like, their team is big and meaty. Like, they make you pay. So
well, it looks like Yanni Hakanpää will make his debut tonight, and it may not be a coincidence based on what you just said.
Yeah,
he's a big boy. I haven't seen who's coming out. I would assume it'll be Connor Timmins. Don't know that for sure, but I would think Timmins probably comes out. And Joseph Woll playing tonight. And this is a big game for Woll. And Woll's had a very good history, short career, but very solid against Washington. I think he's 3-0, and his numbers are really, really solid. And you may need him tonight if the offense doesn't break loose. He owes them a big game. Joseph Woll hasn't really had that signature game yet where you're in tough. They've committed to you. You want to be a number one. This is a big opportunity for him tonight to maybe steal a game if you have to. You're allowed to do that because you lose tonight and then all of a sudden you're 3-2 without Matthews and you hope he returns because Edmonton's coming to town on Saturday. You win tonight, 4-1 without him. You're feeling real good, man. Real good. Like, it can really turn on a dime. And
back-to-back and wash can be – Jamie, do you remember flying in and you get to the airport was an hour away? It was just we don't need this. It could be a bit of a greasy back-to-back where you might be going to bed 3, 4 in the morning. So they just got to – Joseph Woll first period is the whole ball game. If he can do damage control because you're trying to get your legs and let them have a chance to come back in the second and get it together – that's my prediction. Joe Woll, first period. Can he hold back and hold them off? That's going to be the massive factor in the game.
Mm-hmm. You fly into Washington, and they had that bus driver. They called him Appalass. Remember, he looked like
with
Bozo
the Oreo cookies. He always had a jug of
candy.
Oreo.
He had the candy. You walk on the bus, and there's a bucket full of candy. I would grab a handful, and then I would turn, and our GM and coach would be standing, staring at me. I've got Tootsie Rolls and all sorts of
it. He
stuff.
loved it.
That guy, and he was 1,000 years old. That bus driver, but he was great.
Just wait
there's
for
some
the boys.
Characters. Yeah, characters on the road, but that is a tough building. That's not a. It is a weird feeling when you go into Washington all the time because it's just. I guess you're thinking of the White House and all of that type of stuff, but it's a tough building to play in. You got to be ready to play there.
And after a good start, Logan Thompson, man, he hasn't been beaten yet.
Yeah, he's
good. We'll see what comes of it. And, a lot of games in the NHL tonight. We mentioned Winnipeg, obviously winning at the Garden last night. And they've got Tampa tomorrow, I believe it is. So now they're on the East Coast. and they come through Toronto later in December. But I know there were people kind of buzzing about it earlier, like FanDuel is constantly updating their odds, and they are still not in the top 10 for the best odds to win the Stanley Cup on FanDuel.
You've got to be jobbing me right now.
I think they're
Not
waiting.
kidding you.
But you guys know what does Al's brother call it? The sharp money. The sharp money.
Sharp money.
Everyone's going, okay, when are these guys going to have, a market correction? When are they going to
What do they need to see, Noodles? What else do they need to
15
see?
15 of 16, I
Top
don't know.
10 should be mandatory. Like, we're talking Jersey ahead of them, the Leafs ahead of them, Tampa ahead of them, and, Carolina, who's never won anything. Good start, really good team. But, Winnipeg has secured a playoff spot already, and they're the quickest team in NHL history to 15 wins. It's a watered-down league. We talk about it all the time. They are so deep. They are 1 through 4, their lines are so deep, and their defense has been really good. And a lot of, people are kind of wakening up a little bit to what they have in terms of their depth, because everyone knows Scheifele and Hellebuck and Morrissey.
Yeah.
But there's some really good players on that team that don't get a ton of attention, that are really having great, great years. And, I can reason with them not being number 1 on that list. Number 2, maybe number 3, but they should be in the top 5.
Jesus, that's embarrassing. JP, I think, just said 11.
They are 11.
Insane.
That's what I'm saying. They're not in the top 10. There are 10 teams FanDuel has better odds to win the cup.
Okay, Hayes, you go ahead and explain that. Is it because they got dummied by Colorado
well,
last
that's
year?
definitely a part of it, of course, and it should be.
It
Listen, I understand. I understand why some people have the reservations here. I get it because of what they did in the playoffs last year and the year before. Colorado last year, Vegas the year before. They got embarrassed in the first round. Winnipeg's got to own that. They played. Those are their games. It's their reputation. It's their resume. But there are also other, again, the Leafs. For them to get hit with some shrapnel. The Leafs haven't won anything. Why do they have better odds than Winnipeg?
Yeah.
Jersey didn't make the playoffs last year.
Yeah,
Jersey hasn't done anything in 15 years. Maybe not quite 50. They were in a cup final, I guess, against L.A. 10 years ago. But you know my point. Is I can't understand. Again, I'll give you Florida. Florida I get. I might even give you Edmonton, maybe Vegas.
Is Florida at the top?
Florida's right behind. I think Edmonton's still at the top, which to me, that's about how much money's coming in, and they're trying to. The books also try to balance how much they're going to lose if that team wins, right? It probably says that a lot of people just are not hammering the Jets, so they're not adjusting the line.
That's what I was saying. It's not the sexiest pick, and there's so much money coming in on, hey, I'll take a flyer on the Leafs. Hey, I'll take Edmonton was rated to here. Mm-hmm. New Jersey got a goal.
Got a lot of love.
Sprinkle some. That's what it is. It's not, hey, the odds makers are like, we believe that Winnipeg's going to fall off a cliff here. You have to own your history, but a team that's got 15 wins in the first 16 games, they have to be in the top 10. I'm sorry. That's
it's offside. It's completely offside.
I'm surprised there isn't sharp money looking at that saying, look at the odds I'm getting for this team.
There might be.
They're going to the playoffs. They're going to be in the play. You can have that guarantee in November. And I'm sure you can say the same thing about a lot of different teams. But, yeah, it's crazy how good they've been. And, they beat New York at the Garden last night. McDavid had 4 points last night.
So he's 1 point away from 1,000. I thought he was going to get his 5th point last night.
I thought he was going to pull a Gretzky, 5 goals for Gretzky to get to 50 and 5 points for McDavid to get to 1,000.
Yeah, it was close. I mean, they made it more interesting than it should have been. But
Skinner, man. There are a couple goals. I don't know. I don't know about that dude. The way he's starting his year, it's not comforting.
I think it's just that mirrors their team, man. They were. Did you? I don't know if you saw the underlying numbers, and that did you care or whatever. Did you see the high danger chances were 17-2 last night? There was no that was a 7-2 win for Sorkin was ridiculous. That's really what it was. There was no business that had no
Should
business
not have
going.
been close.
Not even
Islanders
close.
had no right.
They had no right to be in. Sorkin, if anything, he stole them a point. That's what he did. But Edmonton was all over them. all over them, and it just like, hey, couldn't score, couldn't miss a net, do this, high chance, goalie makes an unbelievable save, and they almost pissed it away. They almost did, but Draisaitl scores in OT.
That was a cheeky goal too, man. Like
Dude,
over
it was
his
disgusting.
shoulder.
It was filthy. Some of that guy's little snapshots around the net. He's just
crazy.
disgusting.
Crazy.
Well, McDavid's goal, that actually should have been a penalty on him. He tripped
he
Wallstrom
definitely
along
tripped.
the wall.
Was it Palmieri up the side wall?
No, I think it was Wallstrom. It was that's a tripping penalty. I'm sorry.
It did look like he tripped him.
He literally tripped him, took his feet out and took the puck, and then gets the puck back and scores. But you get a favorable call there. But that's a 100% a tripping penalty.
Could have been a trip. But McDavid's going to hit 1,000 points, and I believe only Gretzky and Lemieux did it faster. Like that's what we're talking about
Makes
here.
Sense.
Struddy will join us in 20. Jason Strudwick coming up. Jerry's percentage is coming up. We have a winner for our getaway from Tay-Tay. We're going to play it. We have, I believe it's video. I know it's audio. A lot of the submissions were just incredible. All of them were amazing. And I've been listening to them the last few days. They're incredible. Like we're so lucky to have the audience we do. The amount of people that have put in time and effort and creativity. But we are going to announce the winner today. And we will be playing that video a little bit later on. So you're going to want to see this. You're going to want to hear this. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. All right, so I hate to say this, but I think Caitlyn Clark deserves an apology from somebody in the golf world because Annika Sorenstam, that's probably who actually owes her the apology, hosting a tournament down in the Tampa area, and Caitlyn Clark was invited down there to be a part of the Pro-Am. And she was also invited to take part in the ceremonial tee shot.
Okay.
we
And
have
video
Tommy
of
Kite,
this.
man. She went Tommy Kite.
She went Tom Kite, where why security would allow anyone in the general public to be down the fairway when you're talking about an amateur golfer is beyond me. But she hosel rockets this one right off someone's head.
Oh, my God.
And what I love is she has a breakfast ball. She reloads in one movement. That's a veteran play.
Dude,
like, they didn't even care about what went on? Just
right,
like,
right into the second load, dude. Like, she's like, second bullet, reload. Like, usually, a lot of people would be like, I got to get out of here. I can't believe that just happened. And
dude, you got to see, there's a guy that has a view from his camera, and it's almost like he's right beside the lady that got hit. It's insane seeing this thing come skyrocketing at them.
How did her second shot go?
Good. Dialed in.
Dialed.
But the first one, she beamed somebody, and now did she go over? Is there a follow-up there, or is the lady like...
Look at this view. Look at this golf ball coming. Look at that.
Oh, my God.
Dude, that's got pace.
Sam Rosen.
Play that again. Look at this golf ball.
Oh, my Lord.
That would absolutely take your eye out, man.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
That's like a TPX right off the head. That is really legitimately moving off the tee. And again, it's not her fault at all. We've played in the Pro-Ams. I've seen some funky stuff at Pro-Ams.
Yes.
There is an understanding. No one in the crowd lines up close to the tee box for an amateur who's teeing off. Like, you have no idea where the ball's going to go. She's not a professional.
Dude, golf makes you nervous. Like she's one of the best basketball players, male or female, in the world.
Yes.
But a golf ball and a club, I'm telling you, I've done it. I played in this celebrity shootout after a golf tournament, and everyone was just lined from the middle of the fairway around, and if you get a hole-in-one, it's $1 million to charity. And I got up, and it was my turn, and I just looked to the left, and all I saw was Michael Jordan smoking a cigar and drinking a Bud Light right beside me, and I'm like, I can't do this right now. There's MJ of all people staring at me hitting this shot, and I'm gonna shard all over myself. And I did. I absolutely dug into the ground and I hit it 10 feet. It's so embarrassing.
It's so embarrassing, and it's so nerve-wracking, man.
Dude, it's disgusting.
It is, because you understand what the outcome could be. It could be what Caitlyn Clark went through. It could be amazing. You could throw one to 6 feet, or even throw it, maybe miraculously hit a home run or a hole-in-one. It is possible. You are capable of doing that. And if no one's around, you would never think twice about it, and you just hit the ball. You may not love your shot, but you're going to get it off the tee.
Yeah.
You put general public around there with the announcer who's like, ladies and gentlemen, like I've again at the Pro-Am, nowhere close to this, but they call your name out. You put the peg in the ground. Your hands are shaking. You're like,
sure.
if I hosel
nervous.
this off somebody, that is immediately a massive story in the city.
Yeah.
That Bryan Hayes sculled someone with his 5-iron at the Pro-Am.
Love to.
Like, it's terrifying. And at
Well,
least
she didn't care.
Dude, Tom Brady's the greatest football player. Tom Brady at Pebble Beach. I'm not sure if you guys have seen this. Everyone is surrounded Tom Brady at Pebble Beach. We'll try to play it as soon as the next hour. He hits the ball 2 inches with a driver.
Oh, I know that clip. Yes,
dude,
we played it a lot.
Tom Brady hit it 2 inches with the driver, and everyone was. Nobody said anything. Everyone was just like, "What the hell was that?"
That's right. I know that. I know exactly what you're talking about. He lifted his head up, and there was an amateur photographer was like, "Oh my God, Brady just literally hit the top of his."
Scotty Vale was playing with him. He was beside himself. He could not believe Brady was doing that.
It's sickening. And again, amateur golfer, professionals like you referenced. There was that Tom Kite shot, which we can't play because the audio is so horrendous. I went back to watch it today because I love it so much. And I don't know who's in the booth calling it.
It's not Vern?
It's not Vern. I can't remember who it was. But he is literally flabbergasted. Like, the call is amazing. He's like, I have never seen a professional golfer do anything like that.
Dude, let alone Tom Kite. He's a U.S. Open winner, man.
Right. He had won more money on the PGA Tour than anyone in history. And the guy was like, I can't believe I just saw Tom Kite.
Old Tommy Seabass face, like he just was beside himself afterwards.
He was, dude. He had the hand on the chin, and like his caddy had his hand on his shoulder.
I don't care about the audio. Joe from the bridge. In somewhere throughout the show, we need Brady, 2 Toms, Tom Brady and Tommy Kite.
Okay.
And we're just going to break it down. Insane stuff.
Who's the guy we have on our sweatshirt? What's it? Greg Norman.
Greggy Norman. He could hosel rocket a 4-iron on 18 into the crowd at the Masters, too. He doesn't care, man.
He absolutely did.
He doesn't care.
He did. He'll Caitlyn Clark that. No question. All right, Struddy and Jerry coming up. And both Toms. We'll play both clips. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4.